Hello, welcome back to the Caring Conversation Studio. We are live at the Care Show in London. We have a new guest in the studio. Hello.
Nice to see you. How you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm all right. Do you want to give us an introduction, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Dan Jenkins. I'm Commercial Director for Wagada Digital. We're a full-service digital agency. We've got offices in London, St Albans and Cheltenham. We work extensively within the care sector across the UK.
Lovely. So I've talked to a lot of people today about the sort of, I'd say probably not a new phenomenon, but there's a lot more homes, operators wanting to get in on the private paying markets.
Yeah.
And I think this is sort of partly because they have to.
Yeah.
And I think partly it's a bit of a boom. So suddenly got these new providers with maybe 2 or 3 homes coming in and going, how do we actually communicate with people and pick up clients from this side?
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to hear your sort of thoughts as a digital marketeer, what should people be doing, what's important, what's not important. Yeah.
So firstly, it's really interesting you say that, because I think this is a theme that is not just present within the care sector and impacting the care sector, although it's of course very prevalent within the care sector, but it's something that we're seeing at large at the moment across the UK. You know, organisations in general, any organisation that's been reliant upon a certain inquiry stream, revenue stream that is very heavily related towards, government contracts and tenders, to then feel the need to pivot because they're so reliant upon that, it's having a massive impact, and brands are having to rethink and reshape what is their route to market. It does leave care organisations in a place of risk when they're so heavily reliant. We have worked with brands whereby they might start from a place where they go, look, we're 95%, 97% of our work is from government contracts. And I think one of the biggest challenges to then consider is that when there has been that reliance on government contracts, probably for all the right reasons, there's then a little bit of a situation of catch-up, where because you haven't really had to focus on route to market and private market and what's your story and how do you reach people and how do you resonate with people, all of that activity takes time. So what I think we then see is it can appear quite overwhelming to then basically change direction and go, look, we need to redress the balance, sort out our ratio so that we're not quite so heavily reliant upon government contracts, and we're a bit more in control of our route to market and our revenue streams. So I think one of the biggest initial challenges is how you sort of approach that, how you then look at that and go, right, how do we change direction, how do we refocus, and how do we make sure that we turn this around so that we're not quite as reliant and we can fix that route to market side of things in the private market.
It's quite a big sort of culture switch, I suppose, and then internally maybe the commercial incentive isn't there for the managers, for example, to suddenly have to deal with a load of sales inquiries.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think marketing or selling into a private market is going to take a whole different amount and type of focus, as well as completely different at times skill set and level of resource. You mentioned kind of managers there, and suddenly there's a need whereby you're calling upon team members across the organisation, either from a head office type role or from an on-site role, but ultimately whatever the type of organisation is, you're calling upon people to work in a very, very different way. And within that, you're also then setting goals and objectives and targets and incentives that are related to a whole other area of the organisation in terms of reaching and resonating with the private market. It would also tend to mean that you're adopting and doing lots of tactics that you might not have done previously. You might have focused all of your efforts in terms of being best positioned to win those government contracts, but are there elements of kind of marketing or communications or sales that are within your organization's DNA at all? And I'm talking about anything from networking to advertising to whatever it is whatever element of the private market you're looking to break into. The experience might not be there. So again, that does bring a challenge. Now that's not to say that all of this isn't achievable. It should be very achievable, and if you approach things in the right way, then absolutely over time you can start to redress that balance. But I think, as you say, getting that team buy-in, or calling upon certain departments to pivot and focus in other areas, or even look at new recruitment or new strategies, is something that you then have to navigate, which can be quite challenging.
So say you've done that piece and you've got the teams on board, and yes, great, let's get some more private paying clients in, and you've thought about kind of the process, the sales process, and how you deal with inquiries. What's kind of hot, what's good, what should people be focusing on the digital marketing side?
So more and more we're seeing organisations seriously reevaluate their level of spend and where it is that budget is going. So what's the best activity, and what's going to give me that highest either return on ad spend or return on investment. It's front and center. More and more we're seeing brands have real success across digital channels. They're investing less and less in kind of certain offline tactics, and they are moving more and more towards digital. So again, we're seeing the need for content and content marketing, video content, as you know. Are we telling these stories correctly? Again, if you're looking to break into the private market, you suddenly have to really open the lid a lot more on what you do as an organization. Why you should stand out from the crowd in quite a noisy marketplace. So again, video and content marketing has been really, really key in that. If you're looking for those quicker results, especially if you're, as I say, pivoting and looking at a whole new route to market, investing in Google advertising, social media advertising across Meta is still incredibly prevalent and some of the most powerful sort of direct-to-consumer marketing tactics. Where we found it really, really effective is to find that sweet spot. So if you're looking to, raise brand awareness, generate engagement, start to bring in an audience, then advertising across Meta. If you're looking to target, families potentially of residents, for example, then that's going to be really, really powerful. But you want to make sure that your budget split is in the right place, so that you're balancing that with things like Google Ads, PPC, so that you're targeting people that are perhaps a lot more in the market, who are actively searching, who are looking for solutions. So again, social media, organic and paid, in terms of that sort of storytelling and brand awareness, coupled with effective content marketing, and then slightly more aggressive marketing tactics like Google Ads. That's where we see the kind of the core focus. And then finally, on that point, search engine optimization. So what we find more and more is that brands who are reliant or dependent upon a certain revenue stream, where they haven't had to go actively after prospective customers or prospective businesses if they're B2B. Things like SEO don't seem to come into the strategy. We don't really need to be found. We don't really need to be found this way. But suddenly, if you start to Google your solution, and you realise actually the organisation's on page 2 or 3. When we're not visible enough, actually SEO becomes massively important. And again, that's a long-term play, but you can reap the rewards down the line. So even if you need a quick fix and certain advertising tactics that might generate results more quickly, still balance that with thinking longer term. Where do we want to be in 12, 18, 24 months? Because we need to be starting those tactics ideally yesterday, but realistically we need to be doing it now.
And often there's some quite easy wins with SEO, isn't there? Where just simple optimization can sometimes really just start that story immediately, can't
Even now, some of the fundamental elements of SEO aren't done on certain brands' websites. There are brands that have engaged and they've had a gorgeous new website, but if the SEO hasn't been considered, there are some basics in terms of the keyword optimization and how the site is structured from a user experience perspective. That if you get those things in place, you could be seeing results as early as 2 to 3 months, and then you start to build from there. So, there's a lot that can be done. And again, these are areas that are potentially under-considered previously if you've been very reliant on that sort of, on contracts and not needing that route to market.
Yeah, there's customers out there looking for you. You want them to find you, right? As simple as that, because the best type of inquiry is one where they say, I would like what you are selling, please. Yeah.
And I really would encourage brands to think long term. So you'd be surprised how many organizations I speak with whereby, and I can even think of literal conversations whereby at a certain point, they're in a really good place and perhaps occupancy levels were high, so they didn't feel the need to market or to do all of this activity. And then you fast forward 9 or 12 months and perhaps they've had a challenging period for various factors. There's then factors outside of their control that have an impact as well. There's funding situations. So, and then they go, now we need to start doing something. Well, actually, you should have been realistically doing things when you were in a good place, because that's where you invest, that's where you build, because then when the tough times come, you're sort of prepared for it. So I'd say it's never a bad time to start really thinking about all of this. Even if you're in a strong position now, getting all those fundamentals in place is so important.
And if you're in a luxurious position where your AdWords are working so well, you want to turn the tap down a bit. Great, turn it down a bit, but keep it tickling over.
Definitely.
Because
and as I say, and balance that. So if you are in a position where you can scale back on certain activity, well, actually, can you think about investing a little bit elsewhere? We mentioned about that sweet spot. A big part of how we work with brands is making sure that, as I say, that budget is going in the right areas. Because they might have a pot and a marketing budget or a plan for the year ahead, but in terms of realistically being able to split that budget, and then know where it's going to get you the best ROI is so important. So yeah, sometimes it's not just about pulling back; it's about going right. Well, if we ease off and we turn the tap down a little bit on some of these short-term tactics, should we actually be investing a little bit more in brand awareness, long-term activity, content marketing, so that we're sort of building for that point again in 12 or 18 months. So there's so much to consider in all of this, and again, it's not easy, but these are all things that I think that if you approach in the correct way, you can seriously change how you position yourselves as a brand and what you can achieve with customers.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming in. It's been very interesting
Pleasure.
talking.
Really good to speak.
Yeah, good to see you again. Thank
Cheers,
you. Right,
thank
we'll
you.
be back shortly for another interview.